To have Minister McKenna, who I will ask to kindly come up now. Please give her a warm welcome to Australia.
It's really great to be here. Actually, I think I've got another mic. Can you hear me on this mic? Good. Well, thank you very much for coming out. It's great to see so many folks coming out. I went to Tim Hortons and I got a dozen donuts to bring to volunteers, and they had a donut with a maple leaf emblem on it, and then the Raptors. So you could be doing other things, but you're here to talk about climate change. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Sean. Sean's been such a leader. He said, you need to come to my riding. You need to come talk about climate change. It's very important to people, but they really want to understand, what are you doing? And how are you making sure life is affordable and people have jobs? So thank you very much, Sean. And Jean, I think Jean has gone. I think she's had to head out. It's funny to think that we're back in your backyards, the high school, where many of you, I don't know, maybe many more of you went to, because it's also about young people. It's about what we're doing for future generations. That we need to ensure that young people, that children, grandchildren, have clean air, have clean water, that have the animals that we appreciate, the nature. Rouge, who's been to Rouge National Urban Park? Everyone should go see it. I'm originally from Hamilton, and I didn't know how amazing it was until I became Minister of Environment and Climate Change, and also parks. So that's my very happy place, going to parks. But we were able to protect more of Rouge National Urban Park, and it makes me happy that it's close to so many people. 7 million people are within 1 hour by public transportation. So enjoy Rouge. Thank you very much, Dave, for reminding us how much Indigenous peoples, First Nation, Métis, Inuit people care about our land, our water, our air, and our animals, and we need to work together. It really is important. Okay, I'm going to do a quick slideshow because I think I'll get some information out there. We'll have a little chat and then opening the floor. So think about all your questions. I see some young people, so we definitely want to hear from some young people too. All right. So this is a quote from Prime Minister Trudeau. We're the first generation to feel the effects of climate change and the last to be able to do something about it. And Sean spoke about the impacts we're seeing. So I represent Ottawa Centre. The river is overflowing, and people are now sandbagging. Many homes and families and properties are at risk. The same thing is happening in New Brunswick. But I don't have to remind you, last summer it was really hot. You remember that? It was dangerously hot, and for people who are seniors, young people, people with respiratory problems, or if you didn't have air conditioning, it was really tough. So many examples, but the good news, there is good news in this, that there's a huge economic opportunity of climate action too, and I want Canada to be at the forefront of solutions. Okay, I don't have a, oh I do have the clicker. Okay, we'll see if I can do this. Okay, this is the temperature by year increases. If you look at the red, that's warmer, blue is colder. So for anyone who doesn't believe climate change is real and happening and man-made, watch this. Especially when it starts to hit 1990. And these are countries around the world. So these are the temperatures that they are experiencing. See all the reds? I think it's important to show this slide because we need to understand that the temperature is increasing. That we just issued a report, Environment and Climate Change Canada, that said, these are scientists, that said that Canada is warming 2 times the global average. 2 times. And in our Arctic, it's 3 times or more. So we're going to have to adapt to the impacts of climate change no matter what happens. But we also have a choice. We have a choice to whether we're going to take ambitious climate action and prevent the worst impacts, working with the world, or we're not, and we're really going to feel those impacts. Our planet is changing. So that is an Inuk. So that is in the high Arctic. An Inuit man looking out. I had a chance to go to the Arctic, and the Arctic is really changing drastically. I met a young boy, and he really captured it for me. He said to me, I want to talk to you about some impacts of climate change I think I'm seeing. So I said, okay. I brought a climate scientist because we were up with scientists. This is a little boy, 15 years old. Is anyone here 15? Close? It's my daughter's 15th birthday today. I gave her breakfast in bed, but sadly, I have a 15-year-old too. I have 3 children. But Carter said to me, he said that our land is now becoming like quicksand. When I go hunting, our feet are getting caught in thawing quicksand, thawing permafrost. And then he said, our caribou, our country food, are disappearing. Caribou are what Inuit rely on for food. But then he said the saddest thing. He said that 3 of my friends have lost their fathers when they were on their snowmobiles going through the ice. That for some people, this is existential. I mean, for all of us, it is very hard when we have extreme weather. But if you live in the Arctic, if you live in a small island state, if you live in many different countries, you're feeling huge impacts. And so this is part of the reason we need to act. So sometimes we don't talk about climate change in terms of what's happening right now to people's health. So many places you go. Has anyone been to Beijing here? On a bad day, the air quality can be pretty bad. That China is working very hard. I'm working very hard with China on climate change, but often it's very polluted, the same in many other countries. But those are also the same pollutants that cause climate change. So does anyone remember when they shut down the coal-fired plants, the previous Liberal government shut down the coal-fired plants? Do you know how many? We went from 53 smog days to what? 0. That is great. Who wouldn't love that? The fact that you can breathe the air. If you have a child, less asthma. Teachers were talking about less rates of asthma. That there are really important health benefits. And that's part of the reason we don't want it to be free to pollute, because there's a cost. Pollution has a cost on people's lives. That's why it can't be free to pollute. But I'm going to talk about why you should be excited about filing your taxes, because you'll get your climate action incentive rebate. So that was a long time ago. The world has changed. But that was when I was only a few days on the job. I went to negotiate the Paris Agreement. You can see there, I think what was important is we came together as a country. And sometimes it makes me sad right now. There's so much fighting that it was seen as a nonpartisan issue, that we all needed to come together. So you've got premiers from different provinces representing different parties. You've got NDP, Liberals, Conservatives. You've got members of the opposition. You've got even Elizabeth May, who got married yesterday, and she and I worked together. You've got Perry Bellegarde, the head of the Assembly of First Nations. That's what this should look like. We also need to have business people there, which we did. We had youth that were represented. We had environmentalists, because we were Team Canada. And we helped negotiate an ambitious Paris Agreement. And you might say, well, what are these international agreements? Why is the Paris Agreement so important? And you can't downplay it, because it is critically important. It was the first time the whole world came together. 195 countries came together and said climate change is real. We all need to act. So even developing countries said we all are in this together. We all need to take action. And we need to keep temperatures well below 2 degrees. That was critically important, because that meant there wasn't going to be free riders. We were all going to have to act. And sometimes people say, well, why should Canada do anything? Because other countries aren't doing as much. Everyone is required to act. That is the Paris Agreement. And we want that because pollution doesn't know any borders. That if someone's polluting, it's going to go onto your property. And so we need to be in this together. So meeting our targets, so sometimes people say, are you committed to meeting targets? So the Paris Agreement does talk about targets. So this shows very quickly what are the different measures we're doing. And I don't really, that's a pretty detailed slide, so, but if you're someone who's very interested in understanding how we're going to get there, but what are some of the things we're doing? Because I think it's really important. We're investing in public transportation. We're phasing out coal. Ontario, luckily, out of coal, but 4 provinces are on coal. We're making sure there's a just transition for workers. We're investing in energy efficiency because that's great because you save money. That's for hospitals, schools, businesses, people. We're in the transportation sector. We need to clean it up. There's too much pollution. So we've invested, I said public transit, but also zero-emission vehicles. If you are looking at buying a new car, we have a $5,000 incentive. That we're doubling the amount of nature we're protecting. There's a big nature summit you'll see tomorrow. We're tackling plastic pollution. Who likes plastic pollution? No one? We shouldn't like plastic pollution. It's also bad because it's clogging our rivers and our lakes and our oceans. So we have over 50 measures. We negotiated for 1 year. When we came back from Paris, I spent this year going across the country negotiating with provinces as to what Canada was going to do as a country. So one of the key measures is making sure it's no longer free to pollute. So Sean talked about that. And I could go on the streets and ask a 6-year-old and say, if I said to some child, if it was free to pollute, do you think you would have more or less pollution? What do you think? If it was free to pollute, do you think there would be more pollution or less pollution? More. 6-year-olds are louder than you guys. I'm joking. It just is a basic principle because you want to create the incentive for people to save money by polluting less. So that's what we've said. Unfortunately, it was an agreement that almost all provinces but one were going to have a price on pollution. Ontario had one. It had a price on pollution and it was working. But unfortunately, it backed off. Other provinces, sadly, and I say this actually really sadly, that are run by conservative premiers, have said, no, it's going to be free to pollute. So we've had to step in. But we always want to do things in a way that's affordable. Because you have to be able to pay your bills, but you also have to be able to save the planet, do your part to reduce emissions. And so that's why we have our climate action incentive. So who's filed their taxes? Who's waiting?